What if the most celebrated journey of your life was actually a process of being dismantled, piece by piece, by reality itself? The path of true awakening isn't a gentle sunrise. It's the systematic unraveling of the person you believe yourself to be. And the shocking truth is, most who start it will find a reason to abandon the trek long before the end. Not for lack of courage, but because the cost is the very identity that makes you feel real. It asks you to let go of the ground beneath your feet while still being expected to walk. I've witnessed countless earnest travelers decide the price is too high when they finally see the invoice. And perhaps that self-protection is a form of wisdom, because once the veil truly begins to tear, you can never again pretend the world is as solid as it seemed. So I have to ask you this directly, right now. Are you prepared to see, with total honesty, exactly what phase of this beautiful demolition you're currently weathering? Because what comes next may collapse every spiritual milestone you've ever claimed. The initial glimpse. How electrifying that first contact with the infinite can feel. You know that flash, right? Maybe it was in silence, when the chattering narrator in your head suddenly went quiet. Or perhaps you were overwhelmed by beauty, and for a heartbeat, there was no separation between you and the scene before you. In that fleeting instant, the usual sense of being a solitary observer vanished, replaced by a breathtaking sense of unity. And my goodness, how transformative it felt. How unique, how blessed, how utterly convinced you were that you'd unlocked a door most people walk right past. The teachings finally clicked. The words of sages seemed written just for you. You felt initiated into a hidden order of knowing. But here's the unspoken reality of this opening chapter. It's a spiritual sample, a free taste of a feast you haven't yet earned. You aren't awakening yet. You're just being shown the menu. The real work hasn't even started. Then arrives the withdrawal. The luminous moments dim, and your return to your familiar mental quarters. But now they feel like a cramped cell. You've breathed free air, and ordinary awareness seems stifling and artificial. So you hunt those transcendent states like a mystic hungry for another hit of the divine. You sit longer, pray harder, read more, trying to recapture that initial magic where everything aligned. But beneath that pursuit, a more unsettling process is stirring. Your old life, your comfortable habits, your cherished opinions, even your core personality start to feel like a costume you're wearing. It's as if you're spectating another character playing your part. And this is where the first real fear sets in. Because genuine change isn't about addition. It's a profound subtraction. Your ego, recognizing an existential threat, mounts a fierce defense. Out of nowhere, you're swamped by skepticism, anxiety, and a powerful longing for the simplicity of your former ignorance. This is all in your head. A part of you insists. You were happier before you started chasing shadows. Plenty heed that internal siren and turn around. They rationalize that the glimpse was just emotion, just a trick of an overactive mind. But you cannot unknow what you've glimpsed. Now comes what feels like the universe's most twisted prank. Just as you fully dedicate yourself to this inward voyage, just as you let go of the shore, you appear to be cast adrift in a starless sea. Some traditions name it the soul's dark night, but that label sanitizes the sheer, unrelenting void of it. It's more like being dropped into a silent, existential cavern where every concept, every belief, every source of comfort evaporates. Your spiritual practices feel empty. Your contemplation turns into a theater of torment. Even the memory of those early bright moments seems like a taunt from a forgotten life. You start to question your sanity. Perhaps awakening is an elegant delusion. Maybe you're simply breaking down. The obscurity is so total that you forget the original longing that set you on this path. And here's the part that tests all resolve. This isn't a brief storm. This winter of the spirit can linger for seasons, for years. It is a frost that kills off what is no longer needed, and you cannot reason your way into spring. But wait, what if this very darkness is preparing to become your greatest gift? What comes after the void is not what you'd expect. This is the breaking point for the majority. They scramble back to dogma, to distraction, to any system that promises stable answers. And who would judge them? The void asks for a trust that seems indistinguishable from insanity. But what if this utter dissolution is the precise, necessary medicine? Ah, but the sense of self is a master illusionist. Just when it seems defeated, it performs its most brilliant act of survival. It assimilates the awakening narrative. Suddenly, you rise from the ashes with a shiny new title, the realized being. You've digested the texts, you command the jargon, you can articulate the nature of awareness with compelling clarity. You perceive the games others are playing while remaining utterly oblivious to your own. This phase may be the most treacherous of all because it feels so correct. You've ceased seeking because you've arrived. You're no longer learning because you now represent the truth. Your ego has merely dressed in robes of wisdom and declared itself liberated. I've observed this in intelligent, well-intentioned individuals who had genuine openings. But instead of staying vulnerable and open-ended, they fossilized their realizations into a spiritual brand. They became captives of their own breakthrough. The clearest indicator: you begin assessing others for their level of sleep while subtly placing yourself among the awake. You construct intricate ladders of attainment with your own position pre-installed at the summit. The innate empathy that should blossom from seeing through separation gets supplanted by a quiet sense of spiritual ranking. Authentic awakening evaporates the one who could claim it. This stage just gives that character a promotion. And then emerges the solitude, the deep, echoing separation that no guidebook adequately describes. Your longtime companions no longer resonate on your frequency. When they speak of their struggles, you perceive the foundational misunderstanding beneath the pain. But you cannot voice that insight without seeming detached or unkind. When they chase worldly ambitions, you observe with the quiet understanding of someone watching a compelling dream. Your family suspects you've adopted a strange new belief system, or worse, lost touch. You were so grounded, they remark, with a blend of confusion and nostalgia. They want the previous version of you back, the one who valued conventional goals, shared common anxieties, and participated in the collective story. But you cannot return. It would be an attempt to re-enter a play whose plot you've seen through. The everyday world now feels like an immersive performance, where all the actors are deeply committed to their roles, and you're the only one aware you're on a stage. The sets are just sets. Yet, you haven't discovered your true community either. Many gatherings of seekers are still embroiled in the chase, in subtle competitions for spiritual status. You feel marooned between realms, exiled from the consensus reality you outgrew, but not yet at home in the vastness that follows. This borderland can push people toward deep sorrow or back into the safe confines of the ordinary dream. The fee for clear sight is often paid in the currency of loneliness. And now, the most seductive trap of all awaits, one that even the most intelligent seekers fall into. Are you ready to see what it is? In this isolated space, you become acutely susceptible to an alluring snare, the flawless guide. Someone emerges who appears to possess the very map you lack. They speak with conviction about the territories you've crossed, provide frameworks for your disorientation, and vow to escort you to the finish line. After feeling so untethered, such certainty feels like divine rescue. But here lies the painful paradox. The instant you appoint another as your spiritual captain, you have abandoned the journey itself. You've merely redirected your search from an internal goal to an external figure. Instead of pursuing direct knowing, you now seek the mentor's confirmation. Instead of relying on your own deepest intuition, you adopt their commentary on your experience. I've seen luminous minds become devout followers, handing over their inner authority to another's blueprint. They cultivate a reliance I'd call guide dependency, that aching need for an outer voice to validate an inner revolution. The most polished teachers understand this and build intricate ecosystems to maintain your need. There is always a deeper layer to uncover, a more potent initiation to undergo, an advanced doctrine to comprehend. Your liberation becomes part of their enterprise. A genuine pointer turns you back toward your own essence and then steps aside. They render themselves obsolete, not essential. But such pointers are scarce, for they undermine the economy of seeking itself. Then comes perhaps the most frightening territory, the total evaporation of significance. It's not merely that your old purposes seem hollow. It's that all purpose, all value, seems to evaporate. Connection, mission, art, agony, delight, all of it appears equally vacant, equally without inherent point. You don't just lose your convictions, You lose the fundamental ability to be convinced by any narrative. This isn't despair, though to an onlooker it may mirror it. Despair is still invested. It aches over the emptiness. This is something more radical. The death of the entity that could be invested in anything. You might observe a stunning work of art with total neutrality or witness a loved one in distress without the impulse to intervene. It's not that you've grown cold. Coldness requires an engagement to withhold warmth. You've simply fallen through the floor of human meaning into a silent, open neutrality. This is where numerous explorers shatter. They become what I might name spiritual ghosts. Biologically present, but essentially absent from the drama of living. Some never return from this expanse, remaining in a state of functional dissociation. But here is the mystery, few are told. This void is not the journey's conclusion. It is the rich, empty soil from which genuine, uncrafted existence can finally sprout. You must perish entirely before you can encounter what was never constructed. Most retreat from this chasm, but a handful of seemingly foolish souls take the voluntary fall. And on occasion, the human psyche cannot process the deconstruction. What clinicians term a break, mystics might see as spiritual urgency, the moment when expansion exceeds the mind's ability to contain it. You might begin to perceive the fabricated nature of consensus reality so directly that navigating daily life becomes extraordinarily difficult. Boundaries don't just soften, they dissolve chaotically. You sense presences. You perceive connections invisible to others. You understand from a place beyond linear knowledge. The medical system will likely try to pharmaceuticalize this process back into the ordinary. Your loved ones will be frightened and seek expert intervention. But you are caught in the rift, too lucid for the conventional world, too unformed for the transcendent one. This is arguably the most hazardous passage because you can lose the continuity of self entirely. Some individuals never fully reintegrate into a cohesive, functional identity. They become permanent inhabitants of the threshold, incapable of returning wholly to consensus, yet equally incapable of stabilizing in pure awareness. However, for those who navigate this rupturing, something remarkable can unfold. The very fragmentation of their old mental architecture creates an openness for a more fluid, more authentic mode of existence. They learn to move between realms of perception without losing their basic grounding. But first, they must withstand the horror of watching their entire sense of self disintegrate like a sand mandala in the wind. And most are simply not equipped for that degree of dissolution. But if you pass through this complete undoing, something happens that you could never have imagined. This is where the real miracle begins. And then, if you are one of the rare ones to pass through the complete undoing, something quietly miraculous begins. You start to smile, not at any specific thing, but at the glorious absurdity of the entire search. All those years of effort, all that sacred ambition, all those ecstatic peaks and devastating valleys, and here you are, right where you began, understanding absolutely nothing. But now, the not knowing feels like the deepest peace. You see that every step of the voyage was just consciousness experimenting with its own possibilities through the dream of being an individual. The seeker, the goal, and the path were all waves in the same ocean of awareness. This isn't the enlightenment you were sold. There's no endless joyride, no ultimate answer, no diploma to hang on the wall. Instead, there's just this immediate moment, this simple being here, completely free of the compulsive need to make it into something else. You find that awakening isn't an accomplishment. It's the cessation of interference. It was never lost. You were just facing the wrong way, like a bird soaring through the sky while searching for air. The humility that dawns is total and freeing. You're no longer the awakened one because there is no separate one to claim the title. You're no longer on a path because there is no distance to cover. You are, quite simply, existence expressing itself, without a middleman of commentary or control. This is where true compassion flowers not from superiority, but from seeing yourself in every face. So what remains when the personal story has been thoroughly seen as story? What is left when all spiritual accomplishments are recognized as clever performances in a cosmic play? Just this ordinary, extraordinary, ever-present now, not as the grand prize of your seeking, but as what has always been present, patiently waiting for you to stop overlooking it. The awareness reading these sentences, the intelligence grasping these ideas, the breath animating this body, none of it is owned by a person. You realize survival was never the objective. The you that was trying to survive the awakening process was precisely what needed to be relinquished. And what you were terrified of losing was merely a bundle of narratives, recollections, and desires that consciousness had temporarily mistaken for itself. What survived? No thing and everything. The body goes on. Thoughts continue to appear. Feelings still rise and fall. But there's no central CEO taking credit for the experience. Life unfolds with effortless spontaneity. This doesn't bestow upon you special status or enlightenment. If anything, it reveals how utterly normal and innate this recognition is. Every rustling leaf, every drifting cloud, every laughing child is expressing the same aware space that you are. The spiritual expedition concludes exactly where it started, in this simple, ever-present noticing that was never for a single instant missing. But now, there's no phantom self left to take a bow. Now, my friend, having explored these demanding phases together, let me offer something that may catch you off guard. The inquiry isn't truly about which stage you occupy. It's about whether you have the bravery to stop attempting to navigate the journey altogether. You see, I've described these phases as if they're linear, as if you graduate from one to the next like levels in a game. But that's not quite accurate. These are not sequential steps on a staircase. They are recurring themes in an endless dance. You might touch the emptiness one day, slip into spiritual identity the next, and find yourself in the dark once more by the week's end. The actual awakening is the recognition that there is no finish line, no trophy to win, no permanent condition to secure. Even this realization can become another cage if you try to possess it. What I've shared with you today isn't intended to deter you from the inward path. On the contrary, it's meant to free you from the fantasy that awakening is cozy, predictable, or personally rewarding in a conventional sense. When you quit trying to manage the process, you discover you were never at risk in the first place. The consciousness that is aware of confusion is not itself confused. The awareness that witnesses the dark night is not in darkness. The life experiencing these stages is inherently prior to them all. And now, the final secret, the one only known by those who have become completely nameless. This is the truth that changes everything. So here is my invitation to you. Stop trying to diagnose which phase you're in and begin paying attention to what is aware of all phases. Stop striving to reach the next level and start recognizing what was never born and thus can never die. The spiritual path isn't about becoming someone extraordinary. It's about discovering there was never an independent someone there to become anything. And in that discovery, everything becomes luminously, radiantly ordinary. That is the real secret the handful who endure come to know. There was never an individual to endure anything. There is only this eternal, intelligent, playful awareness wearing countless temporary forms, pretending to be lost for the sheer joy of remembering itself again and again. And you, my friend, are that awareness right now, reading these words, perhaps sensing your own reflection in this mirror. I'm offering not as an achievement, not as an attainment, but as the most natural, obvious reality. Welcome home. You were never truly away. If this exploration resonated with you, please support the channel Philosophy for the Brave Mind by hitting the like button. It helps more seekers find this dialogue.